everyone. Welcome to Work Love Wednesday. Samm and Smelter here for Work Love Wednesday. It is time for Work Love Wednesday. Hi everyone. Happy Work Love Wednesday. We are on time today. I'm super excited to be with you on this Wednesday. So as we are having people hop on, we are going to, what are we going to do? I want to share this with you. Let me back that up. And I want to share with you that Leadership Arts Associates is turning 5, which is a little unbelievable to me because I can remember very clearly like yesterday, starting this business and not thinking that I would be around in a year. And I've been very blessed and fortunate for the evolution that has happened here at Leadership Arts Associates, and expect to hear more about that because I'm actually writing a little blog post. 5 key moments in the evolution of Leadership Arts Associates to share with all of you, because I'm really in this moment of a reflection on this organization and what it means, and sharing that all with all of you. But before I forget, I want to share, you'll get it first as the Work Love Wednesday watchers. We are celebrating 5 years. We're having an anniversary party. I don't know if this will come up right on the screen, but if you are local to the area, stop by on Wednesday, October 30th from 5:30 until 8:30 p.m. We're having a Halloween bash anniversary party. So excited for that. Yesterday, I gave a little sneak peek on Instagram on the Leadership Arts account of all the Halloween little goodies that we've been getting. And it's really kind of cool because we've been shopping for Halloween goodies that are reflective of us as an organization. And I think that speaks really strongly to the evolution because when I started, I had no idea what the organization was, what our real purpose was, what my intentions were. And that has changed since then. But what else do I want to talk about today? So this week has been interesting for me because usually things happen and I know pretty clearly early on what I want to share with all of you. This week, it was a little different because there were so many things, and some of them seem like little minor reminders that were coming through, but very powerful, important reminders as well. And so we're just going to go through all of them because I think that I've touched on all these in greater depth and detail on other episodes, but I think it's important to see, here's the theme of this conversation, the evolution, or how these lessons keep being present while we're in our personal growth journey, personal professional growth journey, whatever you want to call it. They still show up and they're still pushing us, and we're still having to keep moving forward. So the first one that came up, and I've talked about this several times before, especially when I was first introduced to this idea of energetic bodies and our energies meshing with each other, and when they kind of clash, especially when we're in a path of growth, we can literally outgrow each other because our energetic compatibility just doesn't go well together. It causes clashing just like a personality would. And so as you are actively pursuing a path of growth, it can be expected that you're going to run into those even more so. And this week, or this past couple weeks, I had another relationship that has run its course and is kind of moving on one way or another. And it still hurts. And I think that's what's important to share, is that even though you may outgrow relationships, and it's best that you kind of part ways. And this is not like these big dramatic endings, but you'll just find that you grow apart and there's distance there, and slowly you're just not connecting anymore. When you come to the realization that that's kind of what's happening, it's hurting. It hurts. You care about those people. There's still certain relationships that I've outgrown or they've outgrown me. And I still have a very challenging time with it. I'm still processing how they ended, because some of them don't end so nicely. Some of them, it's a big kind of blow up that results in the ending. And then during that blow up, you realize that your paths of growth are taking you in two different directions. And that's kind of what led to the emotionally charged blow up. And then others, they just kind of slowly fade into the background. But both, there is a sadness, there is a grieving process that I think accompanies that. And I think it's natural. And I think it's good to put that out there. On the flip side, something that rarely happens, but it was a really nice reminder that it does happen, is as you're outgrowing relationships, you will find that you specifically think that you can identify which relationships you're outgrowing. And so I had a situation where I thought I was all-knowing, and my ego chipped in and was saying, that relationship's not going to be there very long or much longer, because of where they're at in their growth and what's going on in their life. And so just be prepared for that to kind of move on. That's what I kept telling myself. And boy, did I get proven wrong. So in this scenario, that person reached out and took accountability for what they needed to take accountability for. Which is a huge piece in the growth process. I'm a big believer of that. You own what you can own. You can't control the other person. But and there was an episode where I talked about this whole idea of showing up 50-50, and that's a healthy relationship. And so when you're thinking that a relationship's moving in a way that's asking too much of you, so that's that sign that maybe you're outgrowing it, and to maintain your boundaries and to be able to keep moving forward, you have to let that go. But sometimes people will surprise you by running to that 50% line. And I had that happen kind of out of nowhere. And for weeks, maybe months, I have been kind of saying, like building this expectation that this relationship was going to disappear. And I was almost starting my grieving process early on, like it was going to make it hurt less. And this person kind of rushed back out of nowhere and called it out. And I'm extremely grateful and fulfilled. And those are the relationships that you want. You want people who are going to support and love you and help make you better. And the people that are going to do that at this time are those that are on this growth journey with you, whether for just this specific portion of time or who are with you unconditionally because they acknowledge you, they see you, but they're also continuing to grow, and they're going to own what they can own and not. And one of the perfect examples of that is probably my marriage. I mean, Josh and I are opposites of each other. We have very different growth paths, but we're both growing individuals. We're both driven individuals. And so we don't grow the same way. The way that I am working on myself spiritually, mentally, physically, completely opposite than what he does. But we're both growing and acknowledging, and we're both going to own what we can own in our relationship. And as long as those things are present, our marriage will keep being present in the way that it should. But, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, a coworker, if that 50-50 is not there, it can become unhealthy and your boundaries start to get pushed. And it's some of the hardest work to maintain those boundaries is when we know we have to let go of people and move on. And I, as somebody who is an empath and super sensitive and also a healer and always wanting to help others, it's really, really hard when you know that what's best for you is to not have that person have such a heavy presence in your life. And they might come back. They might come back later on. Sometimes you just have to separate temporarily. But then later on, they can kind of come back, and sometimes your paths of growth go apart and then they come back together on these intersections. So that was a really cool reminder that I had this week. The other one, and I think this is what I put in the title for today. I'm like looking over in my office. I have the ability to have the screen over there so I can see. But the other thing that came into play was this whole idea about forcing things. And so when we get into this mode of wanting to manifest, when we want to make our dreams come true and goals, we get into this kind of mode. At least I do. Don't know if you do this, but I do this. Um, where I would have this habit of wanting to kind of force it to happen, try to take every piece that I can control and push really, really hard. And usually this would result in me pushing myself beyond my boundaries to a place where I'm not well. And then I'm having emotional outbursts. And it was not a very pretty path for anybody who was involved. And I just kept thinking that if I worked harder, if I kept doing more, it would make these things manifest faster. And one of these lessons that I learned, probably about a year ago, and I think I talked about this in reference to the men's conference, is, one of the things is when you're forcing something, when you find that you're in a place where you're forcing it to happen, it's not its time to happen. And sometimes that can be very frustrating. For me, I think it's a creative gift that I can see these beautiful, visionary images of what could be and what could come and the potential that is there. I get very frustrated when the journey to get there is far, even more frustrated when that journey is accompanied with a demand for patience because the timelines are different. And so this week I kind of, from excess heart energy, so being very passionate, excess joy, started to pursue this whole new project, which would have totally put me back in this realm of being extremely unbalanced. All this work that I've done to kind of eliminate things that don't serve me or aren't truly aligned with my passion, my purpose, to maximize my potential and serve the way that I want to serve in this lifetime with my gifts, would have been completely undone because of me believing that if I do this, if I go down this path, if I add this project, if I make it happen, that it's going to manifest and make other things happen even more quickly. And I must be learning because I stop myself in the middle of it and I can feel it. And I don't know how it feels for any of you, but when I have excess heart energy, it's like this really big buildup of adrenaline, not in a healthy way. Like I get adrenaline before I speak, in a healthy kind of happy way. I get pumped up after I do Qigong treatments, I get pumped up. So there's that adrenaline kind of piece that's there. This is different. It's almost like adrenaline that leads to this chaos and these unorganized thought processes. And I start to verbally vomit excessively ideas and visions. And when I say visions, not like things that they're things that I see, but creative energy visions, essentially, of, and the office building is probably the biggest, we can go bigger, we can expand, we can remodel. But I start to go down that path, and anyone who's in that path will kind of get spewed on. And so I found myself on Monday going down this path fairly quickly, and I could feel my heart rate raising, my breath. It was harder to slow down my breath, and I caught it. And I finally said, and it's a blessing and a curse at the same time that I have a husband who is really, really supportive about anything. So if I say, I need to do this, I need to make this happen, he's like, okay, we'll figure out with the kids and with childcare and with my work schedule, we'll figure out how to make it happen. If you want to make it happen and you think this is what you need to do, then we will help make it happen. And so sometimes I'm like, that's so incredible. But other times I'm like, I wish he would just say no, because then it would stop and give me a dead end and I could reflect and go internal. But as we're literally in the process of him saying, okay, we can make this work. Let me think about this. Let me brainstorm about this. I instantly went backwards and said, I don't know if I want to do this. Like I want to, but it just seems like it would be too hard. Like it would seem like I'm trying to force this way too much. And the men's conference was a really powerful awakening for me of when I was in a situation and I was trying to force something, and the financial resources that had to go into it, the amount of energy that went into it, and then feeling pretty much like a failure at the end that it didn't achieve what I wanted it to achieve. It achieved some amazing, beautiful outcomes. I'm not going to discount that. But for the amount of energy, physically and mentally and spiritually, that went into it, it caused more setbacks to me than helping me move forward in the work that I want to do. And so I kind of had this realization about this path I was going down, that it was going to be very, very similar, that I was going to be physically exhausted, which means every other project or all other work that I am doing is going to go on pause, which also, when you pause things for your own wellness, it's pretty much like a setback. You have to start over. I was telling somebody about my daily Qigong practice, and I think maybe I had shared this on here, that I had gone about a week not doing any Qigong really, except for maybe some breathing exercises here and there, which is still Qigong, but not the true kind of practice. And when I went back to it, it was almost painful. And it was very frustrating because I had worked my way up to about 45 minutes a day and really enjoying it. And now finding myself going through a struggle of 15 minutes and having to go back. But I say all that because, well, that's my last point, but just like to close up this area, you know, when you find that you're forcing something, that you want to make something happen so badly, it's usually the universe telling you that this is not the path. This is not the time. Things are not that hard when they are aligned with your true connected path. And one of the biggest lessons that I've had about Leadership Arts Associates, which has gone through its own set of hard times, there have been times where I do not believe that this business would still be here today from a completely logical business aspect. So when we are looking at, because we run our business like a business. And so when we are reviewing financials and all those aspects, and this is a lot with the time when Mary Rose came on board, I was honestly looking at the survival of it. And without even knowing it, I was asking myself the question of how much am I forcing to happen? And I had to ask myself some tough questions, and actually eliminating the actions that I was forcing actually resulted in us generating more revenue, and probably is the reason why we exist today. Mary Rose is a really great check and balance that helped me sort through those things and really challenge me on whether it was worth it to try to force something to happen. She was still very supportive, but I needed to have that kind of check, because forcing everything, thinking that it's just going to happen one day if I push it hard enough, was not the answer. And I will tell you that in the times where things have been really hard financially, which people don't know that in a business because we don't let that on. But when things were really a struggle and I did not think that it was going to survive, whoever you believe in, the divine, something greater than us, if it's just karma or energy at its finest, the universe, it would come into alignment. It would provide. I mean, I would say these things like somebody would just basically fall out of the sky or walk through the door, provide the business that was just that amount that we needed to either survive, and it makes sense, or give me that magical sum that allowed me to do the growth that I needed to get to the next level. And so when you don't force things, it does happen that way. It's really, really scary. And I think, that's something else that I was reminded about this week, is not knowing and also acknowledging that there's a portion of this that's completely out of your control is terrifying. And you need to acknowledge that fear, and also acknowledge when it's getting a little out of control, because we don't want to suppress that. It is natural to be afraid. Your decisions cannot be dictated by that fear, but it is natural to be afraid. This morning, no joke, just having a conversation about something totally business related, and then all of a sudden having to call out and recognize the fear that I was feeling in that moment. Because as exciting as it is for the new projects that are coming for 2020, for Leadership Arts Associates, for my work, the stuff that I am doing, there is also still this big voice that is ego that is saying, who do you think you are? How do you think this is going to work? And gosh, are you going to feel stupid when it's going into 2021 and you have no traction at all? And that's normal. It's always going to be there. But it's what are we doing to cope with that, and not letting that fear paralyze us? Because I could have that fear basically shut down all of my plans and make me believe that I should not be doing anything that I have planned or the direction that I'm going. So, yeah, fear. So if it's not enough, we talked about, forcing and how that's a big sign to kind of go in the other direction from the universe, fear, and also relationship boundaries. The last thing that I want to talk about that has been my reminder for this week is finding the balance. So it's probably been a little over a year where I have been strongly encouraged to offload some items, really challenge myself to be intentional about what I take on and where I'm spending my energy. And it is funny to me, maybe not so much after this week of reminders, but it was always funny to me when people were saying, you do so much, how do you do it all? And I'm like, it's not just funny that you think that about what I have now, if you only saw me like a year or two ago when you saw everything else that I had on my plate. But this week, listening to people say that and really looking at my calendar and where I'm going and what I'm doing, what I'm saying yes to, I realized that there is still so much more that needs to be cut, that there is still so much on my plate, that my life is still not balanced. And I think one of the big clues or signs that I am balanced will be when I am truly a priority. And, I've read all these books. I've heard all these things where, you have to put yourself first. And I say it to my clients all the time, like, if you're not well, nothing else matters. All these things that you're dreaming about, all these people that you care about, you won't be able to do any of it. And that's true, 110%. And I believe that. Yet I also, I guess I'm somewhat of a hypocrite because that lesson has not fully absorbed in me. But what I'm thinking is, my priorities are legit and they're important. This summer I talked about, I had some family challenges with my children and taking them on and kind of doing the pseudo stay at home summer mom thing, which I think was perfectly timed with what needed to happen. It was a big struggle. I slipped on my self-care, but where my time was being spent is where it needed to be. My marriage, my family, beyond that, my friends, my core group of friends, those people are important to me. And so when something happens and I have to be there, if I want to connect with them, those are important. There are certain organizations that I've committed to that have missions that I'm very passionate about. And my time there really serves and fills me up, and being intentional about how I'm involved in those organizations to make sure that my time there, I know that I am serving something greater, and helping truly in a capacity. And I can say now, and it's been a couple of months in the process, but I finally have gotten that down to where I'm really excited about the opportunities that I'm involved in, and the work that I am doing on the volunteer aspect, from speaking to the clients that I see, all of that I have been revisiting and trying to be really intentional about who am I here to help? Where can I provide the most value? And in certain situations, is there other ways that I can get that out? So like the Unstuck You live webinars, which are a lot easier for me to prep because there's not so much classroom stuff, a lot easier because you don't have to come here to the office, but I still get to facilitate those workshops. And I also was able to cut the cost down significantly, so that you could take it at your leisure. And that's what that program was all about, was accessibility for individuals who were interested. But I say all this because even as I've driven down, it has been a struggle to maintain my personal practices that I really absolutely need to do. I've had really, I don't know, strong amounts of envy. Maybe those are the words, strong amounts of envy towards Gabby Weinstein when she's been sharing her morning personal practices, and she's got a little one at home now. um, as she's preparing for her book launch. I mean, but she's also had years where she's kind of got the smackdown where she didn't have these practices in place and she couldn't show up at her best on the platforms that she needs to. Her platform has also gotten much bigger. So when she's going into rooms with thousands and thousands of people, I can only try to imagine what that's like. I know what it's like going into a room, 100 or a couple of hundred, and but I also know with my personal practices being as relaxed as they are, I'm still not at my best in that room with those couple hundred people. So this is probably a new belief for me, but I'm in this space where I believe that if I were to really get my priorities set, really get to this place of balance, the question of me and my self-care and my practices would not be a question anymore. Because when I'm not doing them, it's because I feel like there's something more important that I should be doing. And so I really have had this reminder. And so right now, this is where I'm at in this exact moment, really doing some reflection and evaluating of my calendar and what I want for the future and what I've been asking the universe for and manifesting. And I will tell you that actually this year, for the first time ever, my manifesting wishes or intentions have probably been the most abstract to me, because every way that I've done it, and I'm looking around the room because they're all posted around the room, is I've been creating intentional visual manifesting boards that have been strictly pulled out of a meditative practice. So using strictly an intuitive practice to create these boards that I don't even fully understand what they mean. I can feel them in my core that they are right and they're what needs to happen this year. I have no doubt that they're slowly all kind of speaking to me in different ways, but I'm not 110% or even 98% or 70% sure that I understand. Every once in a while, something will happen here that I'll be like, hey, is that this on my board? And then I'll be proven that that's not exactly the case. So this is the first year that I have not really put down that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. It's been very loose as far as what I'm articulating verbally. Although I don't think that I am personally equipped right now to articulate verbally. And if you read at all Simon Sinek's work, and talking about, our true connective path, or our why, which hangs out in our limbic system, or the limbic part of the brain, we don't have the capacity to verbalize something like that. And that's why the why statement takes so long to articulate, to get it right. And then it evolves and grows with us. And I think that's where I'm at. I'm in this really big period of growth. I don't really know which way it's going to take me. And I'm just kind of being open to it and experiencing it all and trying to feel my way forward. Because I think I spent so much time trying to logically predict where I should be and what I should be doing, that I need to spend this time, this physical time. This year was all about feeling what's right, what's wrong, not logically what people expect me to do. And it's been really interesting to watch, and if you want to go back and look at my blog posts from this year, some of the articles that I've been posting, because all of that has been dictated by what I feel in this moment needs to be shared. And that's where that voice is coming from. I don't really tweak. I used to have this, I still have it if you need me to, have this logical, almost cold-hearted vocal tone to it. I can do that. I totally can. It's my academic voice. But my authentic voice, I have finally found it. That was one of the huge things that came out of my first book, From Heart to Heart. And I've been really digging, enjoying letting that come through in all of my writing work that I've been doing. So yeah. So those are my 4 big reminders that have happened this week. So once again, relationships in regards to boundaries, they come, they go. Fear, it's present, acknowledging it, not letting it paralyze us, but acknowledging it. You know, limiting what I'm trying to force into manifestation, because when I'm forcing and I'm trying to control, that's a big sign that it shouldn't be happening. And then last but not least is, finding that balance. Finding the balance so that the priorities that you know that you should have for yourself are what actually come into being. If they're not, and you still find yourself physically exhausted and tired or mentally tired, there's still more work to do. And as I've read these books that are based in traditional Chinese medicine, and I wish I had them with me because they're all at home. They're all my stack of books I'm reading at home. But as I have been reading them, I've learned more and more about how the need for simplicity in life is, and how we've made it so complex with large amounts of acquired emotions or judgment, getting involved in things that probably we don't really need to get involved in. And it's all, for a lot of us, just some sort of distraction from not wanting to deal with or process another part that's happening in our life, or has happened in our life and continues to kind of haunt us because we haven't processed it. So that is my my thoughts for today, my reflection to share with you for Work Love Wednesday. As always, if you hop on, make sure you say hello in the comments because I can only see how many of you are watching. I never get to see who is watching. And share with us, what things kind of came to mind. What reminders has maybe you've had this week about your growth? Because you saw the 4 of mine, but I'm sure that there are more that were happening, because I've come to the conclusion that when I'm kind of going through a trend, a lot of people are going through a similar trend in their own specific kind of life experiences. So share about that. And as always, if you comment, type in #replay. That's a great way to help share us, and let people know that this is out there. And also tag anybody that you think this would be helpful for and serve. All the episodes for Work Love Wednesday are available on YouTube, so make sure you follow that channel and check us out there. Otherwise, have a great Wednesday, and I will talk to you.